All right, I call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, October 2, 2017, at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. Appreciate you folks coming out. We're always glad to have you. Would you join us for a moment of silence, Pledge of Allegiance, and perhaps during the moment of silence you could give an extra thought to the poor folks out in Las Vegas. That's a senseless tragedy that so many times it's just becoming untenable. Join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that's a whole other issue itself. Thank you. All right, approval of the agenda. Do I hear for a motion to approve the agenda? We do have one thing on the consent agenda that has to be amended. It's approval, or actually it's a consent agenda item 3. Has to do with the police department, and the encumbrance is for ballistic vests, not weapons replacement. Do I hear a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So move.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we have presentations, and we have a finance director that's been here for a very long time. Please.
Good evening, members of the Town Council. I'm Liliana Novo, the Finance Officer for the town. We are here tonight to recognize Marlene Meyer for her years of service with the town. Marlene joined the town on September 21st of 2007. She's the finance technician, and her main responsibilities are accounts payable and payroll. She also assists the finance officer with the fiscal year closing and the annual audit. Marlene has attended many courses at the School of Government and Government Finance. She has done a great job during these last 10 years, and tonight we recognize her contribution to the town.
Thank you, Marlene. Payroll is pretty important. I haven't heard any complaints, so that's one we would have, though, for sure. All right, and next is Ben Alexander, code enforcement and a fire inspector. We doubled down on you, didn't we, bud?
All right. We'd also like to recognize Ben Alexander for 15 years of service with the town. Ben started with the town as a part-time firefighter. Soon thereafter became full-time on September 29th, 2002. In 2006, he was promoted to firefighter engineer. In June of 2008, when he became the fire inspector code enforcement officer. He has a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from UNC Chapel Hill, and in 2016 got his Associates in Applied Science in Fire Protection Technology. He still maintains his firefighter certifications and responds to fires as available. He's got his EMT certification, and he's also a certified life safety educator and NC Level 2 fire instructor. In addition to fire inspector and code enforcement officer, he also serves as our local CAMA officer. So in addition to all of the so many official roles that he has with the town, he's got a great wealth of knowledge, institutional knowledge about the town of Kitty Hawk. It's probably on a daily basis that I come to him with a question about something going on with the town or a specific property, and usually pretty quick got an answer either right off the top of his head or he knows where to find the answer. So he's a tremendous asset to the town of Kitty Hawk.
I agree, and you've done a good job at both places. And a lot of times I'm asking questions too, because citizens are coming to me, and I don't always have the answer, but you give it. And you've got one more thing to do tonight that came as a complete surprise to me, but we'll wait for the end when that comes due. All right, next we have Dr. Catherine Brody, Mini Argus. This was of interest to everybody.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having us here and being willing to listen to us. My name's Kate. You can call me Kate. And I'll try to keep this presentation pretty informal. So if you guys have questions throughout it, feel free to just interrupt me and ask whenever you have a question. I'll start by introducing the two other folks who are here with me. My boss, Dr. Jeff Waters, he's the director up at the research pier. And then Dr. Brittany Bruder, she is a co-PI on this project with me. So I guess maybe a little bit about myself. I've lived here on the Outer Banks for the last 7 years. I'm really proud to call the Outer Banks my home, and I'm really excited to be here talking to you guys to, hopefully work on a project that will directly impact our local community here and help you guys out. So I'll go ahead and, can everybody see that okay? All right, so I just wanted to first start out by introducing a couple of coastal surveying techniques that we use up at the research pier that we'd like to apply to monitoring your brand new beach nourishment here in Kitty Hawk. One of the ways that we do that is we use coastal, what we call video imaging of the coast, or coastal video imaging. This is a technique that has been in development over the last 30 years, and it's been in development through the collaboration of a lot of different people. National leading academics, the folks out at Oregon State University have co-operated that big tower you see on the Duck Research Pier property with us for the last 30 years. But we've also benefited from international collaborations as well as partnerships with a lot of the other government agencies like USGS, Naval Research Lab. And so these techniques are to actually take pictures of the coast and turn that into usable, quantifiable data. It's one thing to take a pretty picture, but you can't really make engineering or management decisions off of a pretty picture. So how do we take what we can see in the picture, where the shoreline is and where the sandbars are, and turn that into sort of quantifiable data? And so this is an example, this picture I'm showing you here, there's these 5 little snapshots on top. These are the 5 views of the camera on the top of the tower in Duck. And if you go to the FRF's website, you can see that data in real time. And what these pictures are showing you, they might be a little bit hard to see on the monitor, but I'll try to sort of describe it to you. This green part here is the dune line up in Duck, and then this is our beach looking north of the pier, and then you see these sort of white smears along the coastline. So what that white smear is that's actually as if you took a picture for 30 minutes and let it just average what it would see over that entire 30 minutes. So some people, you might call that time-lapse photography, so it's that same concept. And so what that's showing you is where waves are breaking over the 30 minutes. And where do waves break on the beach? They break on the sandbars, and they break at the shoreline. And so we can use that to actually map the sandbars in the surf zone and map the position of the shoreline. And how we do that is we take these pictures, which you can stand there and you take a picture, but you can't really make measurements off of a picture. So we have to take that picture and put it down into like you were putting it on a map. And then once you put it into a map, you can actually make measurements and say, hey, the shoreline has eroded 10 feet here, it's grown by 30 feet here, and so then that's where you start to be able to make your quantifiable measurements that you can then use as coastal managers, as scientists, as engineers, to make decisions about how the system is evolving. And we'll come back to this and show you a little bit about what we've been doing in Duck using the cameras there, and then that will sort of be a corollary for what we would love to do here in Kitty Hawk to help watch how basically the performance and evolution of your nourishment. One of the other tools that you might see along the beach is we make what are called terrestrial Lidar measurements. So Lidar is sort of a fancy tool for sending out beams of light and then using that light to make really detailed measurements of the beach topography. And usually they fly that from a plane, and so it's really expensive, and so they can only come around to the coastlines like every 5 years or something like that. But we can make those measurements from this truck that you see here, and we can do that before and after storms, even during storms with this system. And so we will be planning to survey the beach from Corolla all the way to Nags Head, at least quarterly, and we'll make all that data publicly available to you guys, to whoever wants it. I know Ken Wilson and Julian have been really interested in utilizing a lot of that data. This picture here, it's sort of hard to see on the screen, but it's an example of what the data looks like. The data is so dense that you can actually see footprints in the sand, and you could measure the height of somebody's footprint if you wanted to. So it's a really cool tool for making measurements of beach volume changes, and so being able to track where the sand is moving to. So you guys are all familiar with the problems that Kitty Hawk has during storms, and we're hoping that, you know, the beach nourishment is going to mitigate a lot of these effects for you guys. And so this Kitty Hawk has a special place in my heart because I actually did my dissertation research down here in Kitty Hawk. And so about 10 to 15 years ago, I was coming down here and making lots of measurements in this area, trying to understand really why this erosion was happening and focused here. And so I'm really excited now that you've gotten this beach nourishment to be able to come back and really document how well the beach nourishment performs in this region at preventing things like this from occurring in the future. So, you know, I think you guys have probably heard some of this before, why Kitty Hawk has these areas, Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills has these areas that erode a little bit more quickly than some of the other regions, and it sort of links back to some of the underlying geology. And if you haven't heard this before, I'll take you through it a little bit, but many thousands of years ago when sea level was much lower, there was actually big rivers flowing out through these water bodies, and you can kind of see, they sort of look like a drowned river valley. It sort of looks like somebody flooded a river and it expanded up over its banks. And so using some of our geophysical survey tools, you can actually sort of drive a parallel to the coastline out in the surf zone or just beyond the surf zone, and you can map some of those underlying features. And this picture that you see here, this little grayscale image, it's a little bit hard to interpret, but that's actually showing us the extent of that old river channel that used to flow even before the barrier islands were created here. And so what that means is you have this old river channel here, and it mixes a lot of sediment. There's sand, there's finer sediment, and there's also these riverine gravels. And so you have really a wide range of sediment here. And what happens is when the waves sort of move over that sediment, it mixes it and moves it around. And in Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills, there's actually these sandbars that have been created over many thousands of years that aren't like your normal sandbars that you have elsewhere along the coastline here. They don't run parallel to the coastline. You know, normally you go to the beach, you get into the water, sometimes it gets deeper, and then you come back up and there's the sandbar there. And that happens in Kitty Hawk, close to the shore. But as you move offshore, as you move further out to sea, these sandbars actually come in perpendicular towards the coastline. You can sort of see these wiggles here. And so what that means is, say you were walking along the seafloor parallel to the beach, sort of outside of the surf zone, you would actually be going up and down these big hills like this as you walked along the seafloor. And so that becomes really important because as waves get big during the storms, they're interacting with these features, and it's not nice straight contours. And so, go to the next slide. What I'm showing you here is actually some wave modeling results during a nor'easter. And we'll start in this top plot here. I know it's kind of crazy looking. This picture down here, it sort of orients you to where you are. This is the coastline in Kitty Hawk. Here's Kitty Hawk Road right here where the Black Pelican is. Arch and Helga Street's about right here. Here's Avalon Pier. It might be a little bit hard to see, so I've tried to label them for you. But in this top plot, these black lines, that's a contour map. And so you can see they're not all nice and straight along the shoreline there. They're wiggling a bunch, and that's showing you those features. These colors are actually showing you the wave heights along the coastline during storms. Now, if you're a surfer here, if anybody surfs or knows people who surf, you can probably name some of these really good surf spots in Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills, and they align with these areas that are showing up as bright red here, and that's sort of areas where the bathymetry is focusing wave energy in those areas. And so basically, as the waves come in during storms, the waves bend and they get focused in some areas, and they actually start moving different directions, and we call it refracting, as they bend around these features. And what you'll find is that the shoreline in Kitty Hawk has these sort of curves along it if you sort of exaggerate it in the cross shore, and that these curves in the shoreline line up with these features offshore. So basically, the bottom line is it's a really complex area. That's why we're having all these problems. And we're really interested in seeing how the beach nourishment performs in this complex area. And one of the questions we have is we're hoping that perhaps as your beach nourishment equilibrates, that some of the sand that might be up on the beach actually starts to fill in some of those features and make them a little bit smoother. And then that would sort of help during storms with focusing the wave energy in different regions. This is just a quick example for you all of some of the data that we can get from our Lidar system. So this is looking at Kitty Hawk Road right here. So the Black Pelican is here. This is the bathhouse parking lot right there. And so if we were to slice a little transect across the parking lot and across the beach, this is data from last fall, so last hurricane season. This red line is showing you where the dune was, and the beach is out here. And this was before the hurricanes hit last fall, around August 26th. And then we went out and we surveyed with our Lidar system, and that was from Hurricane Hermine. And so that was about 10 meters of dune retreat that you lost right there in front of the bathhouse. You probably all remember this. And then Hurricane Matthew came, and not only did you get an additional 10 meters of erosion, and this is actually pieces of the road on the beach on top of those sandbags, but you actually had a 6-foot elevation loss. So that's a lot of volume of sand that was lost in that one fall season. And so this is just giving you an example of some of the measurements that we can make with our Lidar tools that will be really useful to Ken and Julian as they're helping sort of, evaluate and monitor the performance of the beach nourishment. And hopefully, I think the goal is we don't ever want to see this again. So our question is, how does the nourishment mitigate these effects and hopefully prevent this moving forward? Oh, my picture isn't showing up. Oh, there it is. Cool. So what are sort of some of the bottom line takeaways of what's going on in this Kitty Hawk Kill Devil Hills region? This is actually an aerial photo that Bill Berkmeyer, who used to work up at the research pier and was the previous director, took in 2001 from an airplane. And then these colored lines you're seeing, I've actually superimposed on from some Lidar surveys that we've done in 2008 and some more recent in the past few years. And one of the things that's striking is that you can really see all the curving features in the shoreline here in Kitty Hawk when you sort of look in this along coast view. And that these features tend to persist through time. And that's sort of goes against how we normally expect the system to work. We expect systems to try to straighten out during storms and sort of become more uniform, and that doesn't seem to be happening here. And so one of our questions is how, when we nourished the beach, we sort of straightened the shoreline out a little bit. And so how is that going to help things, and what are some of the ways that it's going to evolve? And so what we're proposing to you guys, what we'd love to get your support on, is we'd like to install some small video cameras on different beachfront houses, basically along this whole stretch in Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills where we've previously had some of these higher erosion rates, to be able to make the same measurements hourly that we make in duck to really fill in the gaps between those Lidar surveys. Those Lidar surveys that we do are great, but we sometimes can only get out before and after the storm, or a few times a year, whereas the video monitoring station would give you data instantly in real time every hour. And so that really helps fill in the gap. And sometimes if you have 2 data points, you have one here and you have one here, you can see this change, but you don't really know why that change happened. And so by being able to have more data points in between, we'll be able to have sort of a better understanding of what's going on. So here's a little movie that Brittany actually made today of some of those images that I showed you before from our tower. So these are showing you where the sandbar is. So this is a good example. So the white you see here, this is showing you the sandbar configuration along the beach and dock. This is the research pier. This is the shoreline here. And I'm going to play it for you. And this is moving from April is where we started. We're in May right now, and this is going to move all the way up through October. So there is the duck nourishment that was just completed. This is the tail end of the duck nourishment, and this was in June. And so this is how we've been able to sort of watch some of the evolution of this duck nourishment and quantify it and monitor it. And this is what we would love to be able to do for you guys here in Kitty Hawk. So I'll just let this finish out. You can see the big, again. Play it all the way through. So you can see basically all the changes to the shoreline and the sandbar positions. And you can see as the nourishment evolves where the sand is going, and you can make quantifiable measurements of that, which are really useful for the monitoring of the beach nourishment. And the note I put up here is all this data would be available online in real time to you guys. So we would set up a little website where you could actually go online and see the real-time condition and make it completely publicly available. So Brittany is going to give you a little bit of a description of the system. This is an example of it, and this is the tallest that it would be, and it would sort of really depend on where it was being mounted, how short we could make it. But Brittany designed the system, so I'll give her a chance to talk about it.
So this is a bit smaller than the Argus Tower, so we're not going to put the tower on a deck, but what we're hoping to do is, it's a pretty self-contained system. It has a small camera up here, and as Kate said, depending on the height of the deck, this would be as big as it would be. We may cut it down, just depending on preference of the homeowner and just the structure of the deck. But ultimately, we have the camera up here. That comes down to these small boxes that are waterproof, where we have a small computer, a cellular modem that will actually transmit the data back to us in duck, and then we can also put it on the website from there. So we won't need to come and collect the data or intrude on people's houses. And then this small box right here is just the power supply. So what we would do, we have an outdoor extension plug and plug into one of the outside outlets. And we calculated the power consumption. It would be about, with the current rates, about like 2 to maximum 4 cents a day. And we would hope to mount these onto decks using either hose clamps, like you use in plumbing, or U-bolts, which is seen right here, and they would also have foam surrounding it, so there would be no damage to the deck. So no drilling holes in the decks, nothing. Everything is removable, and there should be no trace afterwards.
Thank you, Brittany. Why we're here talking to you guys is, one, we hope this is useful for you and hope that you are interested in it. And we haven't reached out to specific homeowners or anything like that. First, we sort of wanted to get your guys' buy-in and feedback from you before we started accosting our fellow homeowners here. But we would love to put 10 cameras up between basically the Black Pelican area and the Sea Ranch Hotel. And we've come up with a list here, I think it was in the handout also. These are the addresses of what we have identified as potential good mounting locations, and there's way more than 10 houses there. So we have some backups included. The ones that we've highlighted in green would be the homes that we're most interested in because of their location. It allows for the best field of view of the beach. Yeah, that's really all I had for you guys. So if you guys have questions or...
First off, I'll never look at that beach again the same way I have. For the simple reason that the perpendicular undulations was completely unknown to me. I've always thought it was a gravel sand mix that was causing the problem. But if it's that, but it's doing it in a different way, how far offshore does that perpendicular hump, if you will, occur? Do you know?
So some of the features extend to about 9 meters of water depth, so about 36 feet. It's about probably like a quarter mile offshore.
So we're not going to cover it.
No, I don't think you'll cover them completely. But one of the questions we have is, as the nourishment equilibrates, it may cover some of the nearshore portions of those features, which could really help with some of that. We don't really know. So that might be an added benefit to just having the more sand volume in the system itself.
Okay, and now the elephant in the room. Sea level rise as compared to the undulations offshore. I had to ask, I'm sorry.
Well, so sea level rise is going to be happening over a much longer time scale than the time scale of these storms. And so it's certainly, depending how far out into the future you are asking me about sea level rise, that would maybe affect my answer. But I think these features are here to stay for the moment, and I don't think I could say that sea level rise will exacerbate the effect of them or anything like that. It's hard for me to answer because we don't really know, but that would be my gut instinct.
That was a very good answer.
The storms are your favorite problem.
I don't have a problem with that. Council, are we on board with this?
This is one of the best presentations since I've been on the council.
I agree.
I am a surfer.
Okay.
Your data backed up every break on this beach. Might be too much information. Don't send it to Virginia, but anyway, I am on board. The big question when we started this is it going to stay? What's it going to do? And our answer was we don't know. And this would eventually somewhat answer the question for the future of is it working or not? The $10 million question here. And I'm very interested, and like I said, this was very interesting to me. And Gary, I know we're residents from here, and we've heard the underground river story since we were born, and I had no idea we called them camelbacks running parallel, perpendicular to the beach here. That was new information to me, and it probably does understand why it seems to do different.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that was very helpful, and thank you. Yeah.
Good. You're welcome.
Lynn, you got any questions, anything?
I just one, that was your trailer that was down the beach house?
That was a colleague of ours who also works up at the research pier, Jesse McNinch, and that system is a radar system which looks at similar things. It looks a little bit farther offshore than we are looking with this system. So he's really looking at the evolution of some of those features that I showed you right offshore of Black Pelican there, whereas these data would be a little bit more focused on the shoreline and the surf zone.
I am all for it,
Okay.
and I will
great.
be glued to the website.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think it's great, wonderful presentation. I'm like you, Jeff. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
One of my first questions, and you've already done your homework, have you identified areas already that would best help your calls than you have, my next question, how can we help her to identify these homeowners, be in contact with these homeowners?
Were you planning to contact them yourself, or do you need some kind of help from us?
We've been working with ASBPA to, help, give us the best way to go. And Nicole Elko at ASBPA really recommended that we come and talk to you and get your buy-in, and that it might be helpful if the town mayor came calling on these homeowners versus a random scientist from the Duck Research Bureau, but I'll leave that up to you.
All right, well, you certainly have our support.
Okay.
There's no question of that, and the manager just sent me a little note. Maybe we could give you a letter of support to go with.
Okay, that'd be
You're
great.
calling on them.
Great.
And I would be more than glad if you find somebody that's reticent to assist you,
Okay,
to go out and talk with them myself.
sure. Thank you.
Because they've got a lot of money invested in that beach nourishment, and we all want to know how it's going to perform. So
This is exciting.
let's leave it with this. We'll give you a letter of support that you can carry with you,
Great.
and if you need further, come
I
to
think-
us.
I'm not sure the best way to find the people who own these houses, so if you guys.
We can help you with that.
We can help you with that.
Okay,
If
great.
there's a way though, Andy, if you can get that and leave the names of the addresses of the ones they're thinking about, it's very possible that some of us might know the person, or I think I see some of the companies, it's a long way up there, but I might know personally some of these people and say, hey, and these guys are interested, would you be willing? And by contacting them like that might help also, because I do see some names up here I think I'm familiar with.
You
some
have
of
it in
them.
your folder.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Okay.
in, it's
Yeah, we'll
the
work, we'll work with them to,
Okay, great.
Oh, okay.
help you
Thank
get
so
what you
much.
need.
We'll do it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
See, I can get.
That was good.
Yeah, we'll all go home a little better educated, that's for sure. Yeah, and that's hard to do for us. All right. Public comment. Anybody signed up? Anybody want to speak at public comment? No? All right, let the record show no one came forward. Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? We already amended the thing when we,
motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item is, we didn't have anything removed, so public hearing. It's a text amendment. And does this require a,
Swearing in,
no? All right. So why don't we go into the public hearing? Do I hear a motion to go into public hearing?
Motion to go into public hearing.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're now in public hearing.
All right, this is a text amendment that's proposed for sections 42-616A and 42-247B3 regarding the occupation of travel trailers and motorhomes in areas other than an approved trailer park. The applicant is not here tonight, so I'll do my best to answer any questions that may come up. You can see in the staff report that the proposal would allow the use and occupation of one RV or travel trailer campsite on a residential lot in the BR1 district if specific criteria were met by those lots. Currently, our zoning ordinance only allows trailers, campers, and RVs to be occupied if located within an approved trailer park. There are 3 existing trailer parks in Kitty Hawk. There's Kitty Hawk Trailer Park, Charlie's, and the Preserve over off the Woods Road. I will note that the applicant, when she first brought in her proposal, had suggested a few other requirements be tacked on to the text amendment. After talking with her a little bit, I convinced her to leave those couple off, and I've outlined those in the staff report. One of them was that the trailer RV site would have had to have been in existence prior to 1986. As town staff, if this text amendment were to be approved, we'd have no way of following up or verifying when the trailer site had been established. The second one that she had suggested was that all the campers would register through Airbnb. I didn't feel that it would be appropriate for the town to require or even recommend the use of one travel booking site over another. And then the other was that there'd be no parties or events at the camper site. I told them we already have a noise ordinance that would cover anything that might come up in that, so we didn't include that. I will point out too that all of the other towns here on the beach have ordinances similar to ours. They either don't allow the occupation of RVs and travel trailers at all, or it has to be in a trailer park like we have. During the planning board review, some questions came up regarding septic usage and parking requirements, how that would affect somebody that wanted to place one of these on their lot. I got in touch with the health department, and they calculate RV and travel trailer septic usage as a daily flow rate of 100 gallons per day per site in an RV park. If it becomes a fixed structure, the minimum flow rate is at 240 gallons per day or 60 gallons per occupant, whichever is larger. Given the variations in their requirements, if council were to approve this, I'd recommend that we just added another requirement saying that health department approval will be required prior to issuing any approvals. As for parking, our ordinance calculates parking at 1 space per 600 square feet of heated dwelling space, or 1 space per every 2 occupants authorized by the septic improvement permit. Given the kind of average or standard sizes of different RVs and travel trailers, I recommend the planning board that an additional requirement could say that it would have to have 3 additional parking spaces to cover the length of one of those, the larger RVs. At the August 17th, 2017 meeting, the planning board unanimously recommended denial of the proposed text amendment. And if you'll notice on the staff reports that I had out on the desk here tonight, I've made 1 revision that's highlighted in yellow. At this conference I was at this past week, I learned that the new legislature that went into effect yesterday, when we deal with text amendments or zoning and map amendments, the motion either has to have an approval and a statement that it's consistent with the land use plan, denial and a statement that it's inconsistent with the land use plan, or an approval with a statement that it's inconsistent with the land use plan. And if we approve something that way, then it automatically updates the land use plan. So,
Wow. Really?
yeah. Wow. And then that gets into a whole new thing because an amendment to a land use plan has to have a 30-day notification period too. So it's they haven't figured it completely out.
There's a lot they haven't figured out just yet.
But with that, I'll turn it over to the council for any questions.
Okay. Anybody have a question for Rob? Okay. Rob, you've done a good job. I don't have any
Thank you.
questions. Huh?
I said thank you.
Oh, okay. Does anyone want to speak? Has anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Anyone want to speak? Anyone? This is your only chance to speak. Once we get out of public hearing, we have to make the decision. All right? A motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. What do you want to do, council? We're back in regular session.
Mr. Mayor, I recommend denial of the proposed text amendments to sections 42-616A and 42-247B, preserving the current regulations which dictate travel trailers, campers, and recreational vehicles may only be occupied within approved trailer parks. Town council finds the proposal to be inconsistent with the adopted county land use plan.
Is there a
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It's denied. We have enough trouble with campers parking where we probably don't want them to be anyway. All right. New business. Moore Shore Road Living Shoreline Project. We have 3 bullet items here. And just to make sure public understands what this is all about, basically, the Coastal Federation is trying to put a living shoreline over on Moore Shore in such a way that it will save Moore Shore Road. It will also be a show, tell, and prove that a living shoreline will do that without rock revetments and other hard surfacing. So that's what this is about. So the first one is a construction agreement between NCDOT and the town. Do you want to explain anything on that?
No, sir. Just the agreement with, there's a lot of different agencies that are participating in this agreement, the town of Kitty Hawk being the largest funding agency. But the DOT is also going to participate in the project. The Coastal Federation is going to kind of oversee the project during its construction phase. But the NCDOT does not reimburse those nonprofit agencies, so their reimbursement will come through the town. This first agreement that you have before you is a construction agreement between NCDOT and the town of Kitty Hawk in the amount of $30,000. Basically, it's a standard agreement. What we'll do at the end of the project is send them an invoice for the $30,000 of the construction costs, and then they'll reimburse the town of Kitty Hawk. So there's some moving parts that had to be done. This is all these two agreements, this one and the one that's preceding this. We'll get the funding structure down and allow us to begin engineering construction of the project. So this is between the town of Kitty Hawk and NCODT in the amount of $30,000.
Okay, and there are several moving parts. There's NCDOT putting money in, we're putting money in. Coastal Federation has gotten some federal money and some money will come from the homeowners, the property owners adjacent to those areas that they have property. So there's a lot of moving parts. So this first bullet, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the state small construction agreement between the town of Kitty Hawk and NCDOT in the amount of $30,000 for the Moore Shore Road Living Shoreline Project.
Does it have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And the next one, Andy, is between us and the Federation. Would you?
Yeah, the memorandum of understanding that you have before you now recognizes the Coastal Federation will be acting as the agent for the design and construction oversight for the Moore Shore Road Living Shoreline Project. The memorandum of understanding identifies all parties involved. As the mayor said, the town of Kitty Hawk portion that we budgeted for this year was $180,000. NOAA and CCAP, $60,000, and then NCOD, which you just approved, was $30,000. So the total project cost is estimated at $270,000. Of course, they won't know the final cost until they put it out for bid. But what this does is it'll allow the Coastal Federation to manage all these moving parts, manage the project, and once it's completed, the town would take over maintenance of the project. The mayor did have some concerns about the original wording in regards to maintenance. That's been clarified as far as if there's a storm and it's just not feasible, the town wouldn't be on the hook to replace the project at full cost. So we're covered in those areas, I think, and this is what this agreement sort of represents, is kind of our agreement with the Coastal Federation and what we agree to do after the project's complete. But really what it does is it just solidifies that they'll be acting on our behalf throughout this project. We have a say-so at any time, but this agreement acknowledges that they'll be our agent for the project.
And just to reiterate, and thank you, Casey, for putting that escape clause in.
Absolutely.
I've been around government enough to know that if it's not in wording, it didn't happen. And I wanted us to have a way for the town, future councils, we're talking future, councils to have a way to say, this is not working, we don't want to go there anymore. And that's what Casey has done for us.
And just for the general public, if I can add on, there's a timeline too that there's on this project, and if anybody's interested, it'll be the middle of next year, 2018, that they plan on beginning construction. What this will allow us to do is begin the engineering of the project as well. So it did have a lot of different agencies working on this, and it's kind of a little different to have that many different nonprofits contributing. So I'm sure the Coastal Federation will be glad to get this approved, and that's, like I said, construction will be in the towards the middle of next year.
All right, any other questions? Do I hear a motion? Look at the front.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the town of Kitty Hawk and the Coastal Federation for the Moore Shore Road Living Shoreline Project.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The last bullet on this was alterations of coastal wetlands. And I think Ben is going to tell us something here that caught me totally by surprise. That's the second time tonight I've been caught by surprise. But basically, it has to do with cutting, I guess, phragmites and brake cane and that sort of stuff to bush blind. So give us the lowdown, and we got to make sure that generations of hunters aren't down there cutting that stuff down, hauling it off, because they'll get in trouble.
Well, the bush hog man just did a number on it, so yeah.
Well, that's all right if you leave it, but that's a different story.
Yeah, the question was asked, can you take it away once it's cut? And the basic answer is no. Coastal wetlands are made up of one or more of these 10 species, and I don't know what they are. I'm not a biologist. CAMA has a biologist that determines the wetlands. These are a few pictures taken around town of what the wetlands look like. Some of them are on Moore Shore, some of them are at different places. Like I say, when the reeds and grasses are cut, can they be removed? And CAMA regulation says no, they can't. They have to be left where they're at. The basic regulation is in the North Carolina Administrative Code under the CAMA rules. You can mow them or cut to a height of no less than 2 feet throughout any time of the year. In between December 1st and March 31st, you can cut them down to 6 inches. You can't bother the substrate or the ground that it's in, but all cuttings and clippings have to remain in place where they fall. You can't be toting them away or using them for other things. If you need to cut them less than 6 inches, for piers and all, it takes a general permit out of CAMA jurisdiction out of Elizabeth City or Morehead City, and utility companies can do it as necessary for utility work. The reasoning behind the regulations, the grasses hold the marsh in place. When you cut it, it holds it, it keeps the wave action from getting down into the dirt and substrate and washing it away. When you cut the tops of the vines and all, it reseeds it, so it helps revegetate the marsh and helps it be a living unity. And it also, when they're cut, it gives food sources for marine animals and mammals in the area to help them strive in the area. So that's quick and to the point. Any questions?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I do have copies of the regulations over there if you want to pick up a copy.
Is this a new rule, Ben?
It's been on the books, but it's something they've just started putting out more and more. I was asked the question, can you remove it? And that's when I looked at it and found it. They say it's been in the book since the 80s, but nobody really knows about it. It's basically for what I've been told, talking to Elizabeth City, it's basically to keep people from going and taking out developers going in and taking out a whole section of marsh and clearing it and then trying to say it won't marsh to begin with. But that's what the regulations are.
My reason for bringing this to everybody's attention is I don't want people to get in trouble. This living shoreline on Moore Shore, as you well know, people have been going there for generations, cutting it and putting it on their blinds. Well, this is going to be under scrutiny, public scrutiny.
I'm sure that, that their need, well, I always thought that was a bad place to go anyway, but, It's thick there, but it, it doesn't look good, and most people,
Well, but it's
it's kind of
easy.
the lazy hunter's way of getting it, but
Yeah, and it's an easy
anyway.
way to get it. So I
It's an
want to make
easy
sure
way,
that
but,
we need to do two things. One of them we've done tonight.
Yeah.
And I know you talked to those folks, so
Right.
please spread it around.
Right.
We're not going to, Ben's not going to go sit out there and watch to make sure somebody's not cutting that stuff down, okay? That's not the intent. But what we probably do need to do is have, once the project is up and running, we probably need some signs
I agree.
so that people know
Sure.
that they could get in trouble
Yeah,
here.
this is a living shoreline, and you can't take the little no removing vegetation, da-da-da.
Right.
Should be put down there, or not, somebody's gonna pull up in their trailer, and they still might, but.
If you go out somewhere in the other hinterland, that's a different issue entirely. I just didn't want anybody to get in trouble.
Okay, but going back now, say like if you have a dock and it's all growed up and you clear it out around it, you can't rake the stuff away from the sides, or you just gotta leave it laying right where it
You
falls?
can't remove it from the area. If it's under your dock, you can put it in the marsh beside it.
Okay.
You just can't move it, you can't cut it out
Pick
and
it up
move
and take
away.
it somewhere, okay.
You
All
can't
right.
take it down to the
And that- and
recycling
that's-
and give it to Willie.
And that's Phragmite also?
Yeah, all the beach grass, all the marsh grasses.
It grows in wetlands, like, pretty much
Yeah.
covers it. Yeah. So, use pine bushes.
I took all yours.
Yeah, you did. I don't have any more for you. That's true. All right. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. We're trying to keep our citizens out of trouble. That's what it boils down to. Okay. Town manager, you got anything extra?
Just a couple public notices. Kitty Hawk will be conducting their large item pickup services on Tuesday, October 17th. So if you have anything, we request that you place the items by the road on Monday, the 16th, which would be the day before. So once again, that's October 16th, to place your large items by the road, and they'll be removed October 17th. Also, there shouldn't be any excuses for anybody to have the flu in the town of Kitty Hawk this year. Vidant Health and the Chesapeake Regional Medical Center will be doing free flu shots here at Town Hall from 2 o'clock to 6 on Thursday, October 19th. So after you put out your large items, then come and get a flu shot. So they are free, so I believe you just probably need an ID. But they'll be giving out those flu shots here at Town Hall on Thursday, October 19th from 2 to 6.
Is there an age limit on that?
18 and over, I believe, is the age limit, yep.
Yeah. All right. So I still got to run one down to the health department.
Andy, I have a question real quick. When you talk about the large items, I'm starting to see a lot of brush on the side of the road. Is brush included in this large item pickup? Seems to be pipe.
16.
It is brush also? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Are we doing that this time?
Brush and chipping, yes.
Okay. Yeah, for the brush and chipping, but large items.
We're going to assist the county for this first.
Okay, gotcha. We got that new truck.
We got the new truck, so we're gonna give our guys some experience and
We bought him a toy, he better use it, that's what it boils down to. All right. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything for us?
Nothing, Mayor.
So far, we haven't had to use that letter on the beach. So that,
I went by the other day and I looked, and they were out there yesterday,
Okay.
right at it. So we'll know. my,
Good enough.
my understanding is no. But no. To answer your question, no, we did not use it. Didn't send it. No letter has
Good.
been sent.
all right. Town council? Anybody, you?
Congratulations to Marlene and Ben again. Thank you. Attracting and keeping good employees seems like something Kitty Hawk has had a lot of luck with over the years. And the two of you are prime example of that. I want to thank you. Thank all the town staff. I know, Willie, you've been busy lately with a couple of storms that brushed by us and a few headaches. Thank you for all. And I'm kind of alluding to what the mayor said earlier. We need to thank our first responders every day, but I think today of all days, we really need to say a prayer for our first responders tonight. Being a former one and a current one, I know how your life can change in a second, in an instant. So just thank everybody for what you do. Thank you very much.
Lynn?
Kitty Hawk staff, thank you very much. Marlene, thank you. And everybody else, Ben particularly, does a fine job for us. I know I ask Ben a lot of questions. Sometimes I think he wants to run when he sees me walk in the door. But thank you, everybody, and particularly to Joel and our police department and our fire personnel also. Thank you for being there and making me feel like I have protection and rely on someone we can rely on when we need them. And the beach looks great. I'm ecstatic about that. We just get that last
Well, I had my first
section
complaint
done.
tonight, but that's okay. Jeff?
Ben, thank you. I'm sure most of my stuff that I come to the town falls on you, so thank you. And Marlene, thank you. I'm sure everybody enjoys getting those paychecks. I know I would. I'd also like to give a shout out to our planning board. You know, they've had the last few months, they've had a lot on their plate, and I really respect them taking their time and really doing their homework. And so when they provide our packets to us, I feel like they've done a really good job for the town council, and I just would really like to thank those guys for the guys and gals for the hard work that they're doing for us.
All right. Well, that actually kind of goes for all of our boards. They all do a good job. Some of them meet more often than others, of course, but we're lucky to have them. And we're always looking for
Always.
volunteers. The volunteer list is kind of slack right now, so think about it. I don't have anything else to add. I think I've spoken enough. Public comment. Anybody? Anyone? Let the record show no one came forward. Motion to adjourn. Does it have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Never.
I was just sitting there thinking, it's the only one I've ever heard unanimous approval every time.